crazy how many teams had a chance to win. The Ripper GC went from 9 back to leading by 2 to near the cellar again late in the day. It was so volatile, counting 4 scores. It was pretty nuts, but you know, the cliques have been cellar dwellers for basically 2.5 seasons, and they come out victorious today. That's awesome.
It'll be the summer of the cliques, definitely. So, like I said, there's definitely more to come from us.
It was a magnificent ball striking performance.
Yeah, you know, I got to speak to someone in his camp before he teed off this morning, and they said to me that he is finally feeling extremely comfortable out here. He's not thinking about any swing thought. He's going out there, he's swinging so freely, and it certainly showed today. The way he drove the ball, the way he hit his irons, and even in his putting as well.
Yeah, and lives in Texas, went to school in Texas. His tour win on the PGA Tour was here in Houston, which is Texas, and now his first live win, Texas.
Honestly, it was just a matter of playing solid coming down the stretch. I think there was a switch there on 15 that I made birdie, he made bogey, and I just knew that I had to power in pretty much, and it was mine. The 18 I made bogey, but it worked. He played unbelievable, and he put pressure all the way to the end, and it was a good battle. I love playing here. Obviously, Texas treats me well. It's my adopted home state, so I'm just happy to get it done again.
Live right here on this Friday on the early line on SportsGrid. It is hour number 3, our third and final on this Friday, our final hour of the week on TEL. He is Donnie right side. I am Ben Stevens. But although we are down to our last hour, there is still so much more to get into. We will continue to break down and preview in full game number 4 tonight of the 2024 NBA Finals between the Mavericks and the Celtics in Dallas. Does Boston sweep tonight, winning their 18th NBA championship? Can the Mavs hold off elimination, keep their season alive, and force a Game 5? We shall discuss. Might we see a similar scenario tomorrow night in game number 4 of the 2024 Stanley Cup Final in Edmonton? And a duo of the NHL will join us later in this third hour to break everything down in the Cup Final as well. In a rivalry weekend in Major League Baseball that Donnie will give you some dime and dash plays for on this Friday. A lot to get to, DRS, in this third and final hour.
Yes, we do. And one of those topics that we did leave out of the discussion today, Ben, is near and dear to my heart. If anybody's ever followed anything I've ever done, the Washington Football Club or team, whatever they called themselves, drove me up a wall because it starts just with incompetence here. The reason why I bring that up, the Utah Hockey Club, which I love the fact that Utah is getting hockey. They're going to support it. They'll sell out that arena, and deservedly so. Arizona showed no support for that team. They'll get a lot of support here. Right. But here's what I can't figure out. We're going to have a team that's called for 1 year Utah Hockey Club, Ben. But we are going to have sweaters, jerseys, hoodies, hats, and so all the paraphernalia in the world. And also, more importantly, have team uniforms ready for next year. But we're so much a bunch of imbeciles that we couldn't actually get our team name until next year. I'm struggling with this, Ben, and I might need some help on this because it infuriates me where you might be able to say, like, look, it's just too quick. We can't get this together. But how can you sell merchandise and have a hockey uniform with Utah Hockey Club, but be too hard to put a vote out to your fans, which you've already done and probably selected a winner of that, but are going to wait till year number 2? Help me out. Help me out on this.
They did the vote for what the team nickname should be for this new Utah team in the National Hockey League, of course, going from
Yeti?
Arizona.
Who is it?
Where they were the Coyotes. I don't know what won the poll, but whatever won the poll was not enough for the executives of the Utah Hockey Club to say, hey, this is our surefire winner. You're doubling revenue, I guess, in merchandise, right? You're selling hockey club paraphernalia and memorabilia, and then you'll sell whatever the name ends up being the following season. Some people have taken issue with it because it looks so generic. It looks like in a video game, if you were to start a franchise, that would be the bare bones of what you could do. I'm surprised we don't have the content box for Donnie's uniform judgments all over again, but hey, I guess that's just where it stands.
By the
Next
way,
week, I've just heard.
Let me just get one more point in here. If again, I am the commissioner of sports in every sport. If I'm the NHL, you know what? I remedy this situation. I go, oh, you don't have a team name yet? You're going to sit this season out and miss all that revenue. I guarantee you the next morning they will have the team name, a press conference, jerseys, hats, everything you need with the correct team name on it. I can't stand incompetency in sports like we're getting out of the Utah Hockey Club. Suspend them for a year. I guarantee they'll come up with their nickname and mascot.
Listen, you have Gary Bettman's number as you put on display yesterday. Give him a call. Your good pal, Gary. He might not have anything to do in just a couple of days because the Stanley Cup Final could be over in only 4 games. The first sweep in the Cup Final since 1998. The NBA Finals might be done tonight in game number 4 in Dallas. Will both of these championship sets end in a sweep of only 4 games? That was our question to the people and Fade the Public. You can tell the public, DRS, is just losing its steam when it comes to caring about the finals right now. Will there be sweeps in both the NBA Finals and the Stanley Cup Final? Only 101 votes. At SportsGrid, the Fade the Public poll, people want competition. People want championship environments and that atmosphere with a title at stake. We haven't really seen it up until this point. I thought I was going to be contrarian and vote yes and be in the minority. In fact, I'm in the overwhelming majority. More than 76% of the public thinks that, yes, we are going to see a sweep in the NBA Finals and in the Stanley Cup Finals. That means that the seasons in the NBA and the NHL are both done by tomorrow night.
Yeah, no, and I thought that maybe if you're entering into a series, right, 0-0 each side, nobody would think that you're going to get a 4-0 sweep on both sides. And even coming into game number 4, there's still 2 opportunities to avoid 2 sweeps. And also keep in mind, 2 opportunities for home teams to extend that series. So theoretically, one of these teams at home is probably going to win. But I'm with you. 76% of the current vote now said, yes, we are going to get a sweep. Because what have you done for me lately? These 2 teams that are beating down the other teams have been in complete control. And what's going to change my opinion in these game number 4 is like, oh, now Oilers are going to step up. Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl. Oh, now Luka Doncic is going to decide to play to the end of the game and not bark at the referees and make great plays and play good defense here. So I'm with the 76%, and I'm with you here, Ben.
Yeah, I do agree, of course. The last time this happened in 1995. It has only happened twice in history, 95 and 1983. You like 95? How come? I mean, the Houston Rockets won an NBA title?
Senior year, football, high school, man. Don't get any better than that. Where's the teleport button right now? Can I call somebody up? Brother, send me back to 95 right now. Poof. There you go.
I mean, that would be great for you. I was 1 year old, so that would be a good time for me as well. Not a care in the world. Man. That'd be pretty fun. Donnie playing senior year football.
Up in the OC. Yep.
Yeah. Yep. You know me. OC, Anaheim, everywhere I get around. By the way, the 2 champions back in 1995, the Houston Rockets in only 4 games over the Orlando Magic, and the New Jersey Devils back in 1995 as well, and only 4 games over the Detroit Red Wings. Yeah. Again, it's only happened twice, 1995 and 1983. The last time we saw a Cup Final sweep, that was 1998. There has been 20 Stanley Cup Final sweeps that have ended in 4 games to none. There has only been 9 sweeps in the history of the NBA Finals. Most recently, right, 2017, the Golden State Warriors, if I'm not mistaken. Joe Frizo, you want to back us up? Because I don't think Donnie has the answer.
I don't even know who won it last year. So, yeah, get some help with it.
Yeah. 2018, Golden State Warriors. Gotcha. Okay, good to know. History on the line for the Boston Celtics tonight in what is their 100th game of this NBA season. They could win 80 of them with a victory in Dallas. They would go 16-2 throughout this playoff run. 5th best win percentage on a postseason run in the history of the NBA. And this would be championship number 18, the most ever in the association. Let me put the Fade the Public poll to you in a different question, Donnie. If it is not a sweep, what is the most likely series, and who is the most likely team to win Game 4 in its own home arena?
I got to tell you, and again, it's like I think the Oilers are a slight favorite. So just going by that premise, you probably should take them. But I do think the Mavericks actually have the better chance to extend the series here. I believe that because I think you're going to get a good performance out of Luka and Kyrie. Nothing has really changed my opinion on, like, I was rooting. I told you when the series opened up, I thought the Florida Panthers were the better team, but we're going to root on the Oilers, and hopefully it's a long series. The Oilers haven't shown me anything in those first 3 games that they're a better team and can turn it over. Now, you might say also, hey, Donnie, what do you mean? Dallas Mavericks haven't won anything. I just think the Dallas Mavericks at home have a better home court advantage than what Edmonton has as a home ice advantage. That's where I would go. I'd go Dallas extending the series before I do with the Edmonton Oilers.
Yeah, again, I voted yes, so I don't think either do. I'm not loving what I see out of the Mavs. Yes, if Luka Doncic was there for the final 4 minutes, could they have overcome the 21-point deficit? Still a large hole to crawl out of, and Edmonton has been dominated. Now to the Diamond this weekend next.
Look at the stats. 5 out of the top 6 televised rated games on the WNBA this year all involve Caitlin Clark. The only one that doesn't was a second half of a doubleheader in which Caitlin Clark played the first game.
Only on SportsGrid.
8 playoff games at home for Boston in Beantown. They are 6-2 straight up.
The wild card, I would say, in this game is not necessarily, well, what are we going to get out of Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, Brown, and certainly Tatum. It is Kristaps Porzingis to me because we're not getting back a player that's like, hey, rotational guy. Like, remember when Derek Lively went down with an injury? He was playing well, but a young player, like a piece.
The early line. Only on SportsGrid.
Garrett Cole is getting ready to come back, too. I guess this... Look, they've played great without him, but you're not going to say to Garrett Cole, look, don't come back. I mean, it's a ridiculous conversation to have.
They're not going to take any unnecessary chances. And look, they're at the point where they have a lead. They certainly are going to make the playoffs, I would say, barring some sort of complete collapse. And that's all it takes.
Newswire. Only on SportsGrid.
If you're in the room, what are you doing with the Judge MVP number? Books are now 2-1, standalone favorite. What are you doing with the Judge number?
What do I do with the MVP? I let them bet Judge at what? Even money? Come on in. I mean, you have to acknowledge now that he's the guy.
Game time decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
A full Friday slate around Major League Baseball, a great weekend in the bigs ahead. And my first question is, who did Donnie Rightside have to pay off to have the Phillies in the Orioles game with the graphic have the title World Series preview? But maybe they're not all that wrong. 46 wins for the Phils, second most in MLB. 45 on the other side for the O's, third most in Major League Baseball. That means this weekend inside Camden Yards, it's the second best record in MLB. Philadelphia, third best record in Major League Baseball. Baltimore, Finally, are we going to show the graphic? There it is. World Series. I mean, how many times a guy got a call for it to get it on the screen? The O's a favorite in game number 1 of this weekend set, over under 7.5.
Look at the smart move predictions right there. 55% for the Phillies to win. Let's see if that plays out on the field. Now, also, weather conditions, about 80 degrees. That's great. Wind blowing in slightly at 6 miles per hour, but there is some chances for thunderstorms in the area, something to keep an eye on. But if we're taking a look at a true pitching matchup tonight, you got a really good one. If we date this back to, let's just say, May 1st, so about 6 weeks here on the diamond, and there are 28 pitchers available today on the card that had at least 10 innings pitched over those past 6 weeks. If we look at the numbers, Kyle Bradish's xFIP minus is a 68. That's number 3 on the card. Ranger Suarez a 77. That's number 6 on the card. So these pitchers should be in form tonight. Now, granted, we also take a look last night at a game between the Phillies and the Red Sox, Ben, that we had 2 very good pitchers on the mound, but the hot temperatures and the wind, they took control and easily went over that number. We'll see if that changes. The Phillies also tonight expect Alec Boehm to be back in the lineup and not have Bryson Stott in the cleanup role. That should help. But Bradish, over the past 30 days, here, 101 batters faced, Ben. If we take a look at the non-analytical approach and what happened on the field, ISO numbers, 078, weighted on base percentage, 242. That's phenomenal. And then if we take a look here at Ranger Suarez, that we've known has been a great pitcher all season long, his last 30 days, 124 ISO, 279 weighted on base percentage. The pitchers should win out in this game. I just don't like the way the Phillies are playing. So to be honest, even though Suarez is a great pitcher, I don't like this Philadelphia Phillies lineup. I trust the Orioles lineup much, much more tonight.
7.5, that total. Baltimore a favorite. Yes, the O's did lose yesterday when looking for the sweep and snapping their 6-game win streak against Atlanta, but the Orioles have still won 16 of their last 21 games. We're starting to see, Donnie, if Kansas City is for real. The last week has been difficult. Short 2-game midweek set last week against the Cleveland Guardians, the top team in the AL Central. Then hosted the Seattle Mariners, the top team in the AL West. They did win that series, but dropped the finale. Lost the first 3 games against the top team in the American League East, the New York Yankees, but did walk it off coming from behind in the 9th inning yesterday to avoid the 4-game sweep against the Yanks. Now only to turn things around with 0 rest and head out west to the top team in the National League West. That's the LA Dodgers. Tonight at the Ravine, a rare interleague matchup. The Dodgers minus 162 hosting the Kansas City Royals. Total at 8. What happens tonight in Los Angeles?
Yeah, nice night, 72 degrees, typical for Los Angeles. You take a look at the lineup tonight, going up against a left-handed pitcher for the Dodgers over the past month. They actually have 6 guys with weighted on base percentages in the plus territory. Freeman, Smith, Hernandez, Pages, Rojas, and Kike Hernandez. Here's the issue. Yesterday got a great start out of Marsh on the mound for Kansas City. Are we looking for a repeat performance night for Reagans? If we take a look again, since May the 1st, Reagans on the card today out of 28 pitchers, he's number 4 at a 70 xFIP minus, which is sensational. And also, when you're taking a look at what he struggles with, right-handed batters for a lefty typically is that struggle point. That's not the case. He actually struggles more with left-handed batters than he does with righties, particularly over the past 30 days. And in order to take advantage of that, maybe the best left-handed batter in the lineup you would figure would be Shohei Ohtani. That's not the case here. A 0 ISO power number through his last 29 at-bats against lefties for Ohtani is quite surprising. But if you take a look at Freddie Freeman's last 30 at-bats, he's got a 308 ISO power number and a weighted on-base percentage of 407. So that might be a little bit of luck that you can get down. Flip it over to the other side, Gavin Stone. You say, oh, look at that. Maybe the Dodgers don't have the advantage on the mound. Gavin Stone since May 1st here. How about this? An 88 xFIP minus number with great splits between lefties and righties. 97 at-bats over the past month, a 283 weighted on base percentage, and an 098 ISO power number. So for my money in this game, I love the offensive guys. They just don't match up against these pitchers. We'll go under each other's Ravine tonight.
Now we go to Atlanta. The Braves greater than a $2 favorite. They snapped a 5-game skid in that finale yesterday in Baltimore. Atlanta back home in the ATL. Part of the reason they're greater than a $2 favorite now is because of Chris Sale, who has been electric at the top of that staff now for Atlanta. Is the price justified, though, in the opener of their weekend series against the Rays?
Yeah, that's a tough price to play. It really is, because the focus is always now not really going to be on Atlanta's starting pitching staff, which has been good. How many runs can they get as a lineup? But if we're being honest with ourselves, Ben, again, 28 pitchers on the card today, minimum of 10 innings pitched since May 1st. You know who's the best by a wide margin on this card? It's Chris Sale. And keep this in mind. When I use those analytical numbers of XFIP minus, that 100 is the benchmark number. He's at a 52. That is absolutely outstanding, and rightfully so. You take a look at those analytics and mesh them with what's going on the field. 101 batters over the past month he's faced, a 134 ISO, a 273 weighted on base percentage, walk percentage of only 3%, and a strikeout percentage of close to 31%. He's been phenomenal. And as we know, Tampa Bay certainly doesn't prevent something from happening in the Sale, because that lineup stinks overall, particularly against left-handed batters. Flip it over to Atlanta. Zach Littell, very, very good here, by the way, against right-handed batters, but lefties, he's susceptible. The only issue is you're going to get some lefties in the lineup, but they have been hitting right-handed batters. Why? Because Atlanta really hasn't been hitting anybody at this point. If you are going to take a look at a number, maybe it's run line first 5 innings for Atlanta, because I do believe they have the better pitcher on the mound who's been filthy for the past month and a half. But outside of that, don't like too much here. The pricing just a little bit off for me, Ben.
8.5. The Braves, one of 3 teams in MLB that have played 60% or more of their games to an under. That includes the Astros. Where is the fork? It's going to be a tough weekend to get things started, even at home in H-Town against Tarek Skubal on the other side for Detroit. 8-1 this year with a 1.92 ERA and a virtual pick'em.
Yeah, by the way, a much maligned Hunter Brown from early in the season. He's really turned it around. And Tarek Skubal, a 60 XFIP minus since May 1st. I hate to do it to us again. Probably looking for an under in this game as well, Ben.
Total 7, but hard to fault you, DRS, with the trends for the Astros and Skubal on the other side of the Titans. More around MLB up next.
Look at the stats. 5 out of the top 6 televised rated games on the WNBA this year all involve Caitlin Clark. The only one that doesn't was a second half of a doubleheader in which Caitlin Clark played the first game.
Only on SportsGrid.
8 playoff games at home for Boston in Beantown. They are 6-2 straight up.
The wild card, I would say, in this game is not necessarily, well, what are we going to get out of Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, Brown, and certainly Tatum. It is Kristaps Porzingis to me, because we're not getting back a player that's like, hey, rotational guy. Like, remember when Derek Lively went down with an injury? He was playing well, but a young player, like a piece.
The early line. Only on SportsGrid.
Garrett Cole is getting ready to come back too. I guess this. Look, they've played great without him, but you're not going to say to Garrett Cole, "Look, don't come back." I mean, it's a ridiculous conversation to have.
They're not going to take any unnecessary chances. And look, they're at the point where they have a lead. They certainly are going to make the playoffs, I would say, barring some sort of complete collapse. And that's all it takes.
Newswire. Only on SportsGrid.
If you're in the room, what are you doing with the Judge MVP number? Books are now 2-1, standalone favorite. What are you doing with the Judge number?
What do I do with the MVP? I let them bet Judge at what? Even money? Come on in. I mean, you have to acknowledge now that he's the guy.
Game time decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
A rivalry renewed to start off this weekend in MLB tonight in Boston. We go to Fenway Park, where we have the New York Yankees and the Boston Red Sox facing off. A slightly earlier first pitch start, 6:30 p.m. Eastern time on this Friday. It's a day that we love here on the early line in the FanDuel Sportsbook, but it's only known as one thing. Luis Gil on the mound for the New York Yankees. Minus 156, the price in favor of the Pinstripes, even on the road in Fenway. Over-under now stands at 9.5. What do you like in the opener between these two long-standing rivals?
By the way, I do think this is interesting, and you're right, a little bit earlier start probably. Why? Because the NBA Finals are taking place tonight. And also, usually when the Yankees are in town, it's a big deal. Like, I honestly think they probably on every single board at the stadium should just be running the basketball game if this baseball game does run late. But granted, the way baseball gets over, used to be on Sunday Night Baseball, the Red Sox versus the Yankees would take like 7 hours. No longer the case. So you might be out of there by the time the game even starts to get the people watching. But this game itself, you're looking at Brian Bayo on the mound tonight. Does struggle with left-handed batters. You know there's a lefty in that lineup that is a heat-seeking missile, and that's Juan Soto. Should be on your cards. 85 at-bats against right-handed pitching over the past month. 382 ISO, weighted on base percentage, 469. You know the rest of the characters. You're expecting Volpe, Soto, Judge, Verdugo, and Stanton to do some damage along with Gleyber Torres, and they probably will. But on the other side, as we talked about, Luis Gil is on the mound. He's been pretty filthy for this entirety of the Major League Baseball season. If I'm looking at his numbers since May 1st, it's an 84 xFIP minus, which is very good. Now, there are a couple really good batters on this team for Boston, particularly at home. Duran's been good. Hamilton's been good. Devers has been good. Even Emmanuel Valdez, guys that maybe not top of your name when you say, ooh, who's a really good player in Major League Baseball? But I'm still going to leave it up here to the Yankees. I think they have the better pitcher on the mound today and a lineup that can do damage. Temperatures here, not as hot as they were yesterday in Boston, 74 degrees with some rain in the forecast, but we should get some runs from a Yankee side. I think the Yankees handle their business here.
The Yanks did get the win on Sunday Night Baseball in Gil's last start against the Dodgers, 6-4. Gil gave up 3 earned, but he is still 8-1 this year with a 2.04 ERA. That's top 5 in all of MLB. A divisional duel, a rivalry of its own. Today in Chicago, day baseball on a Friday afternoon in the summer months in Wrigley. That's a good time. Minus 122 for the Cubbies, who could use some good vibes, DRS. Now, just 33-36 this year, total 7.5. What happens today inside the friendly confines?
Yeah, maybe some home cooking as they get back to the friendly confines of Wrigley Field. But you see that number 8 there for the total. You know what that means. Wind's not blowing out. It's blowing in at double digits from center field. But not all that bad. It's 11 miles an hour, 76 degrees. If we take a look at that Chicago Cubs lineup, the way to get after Kyle Gibson as a right-handed pitcher, he's got very good statistics on the season against right-handed batters. But that does change from a lefty perspective. Over the entire year, 169 lefties he's faced, a 234 ISO, and a weighted on-base percentage of 355. That actually increases over the past 30 days up to a 288 ISO power number and a weighted on base percentage of 438. So there's your trigger point here for the Cubs. Talkman leads off as a lefty. Not great numbers here, but then you start to get into Cody Bellinger, 172 ISO, 331 weighted on base percentage, about average over his last 69 at-bats against right-handed pitching. But then also maybe the best batter in the lineup, which sat out yesterday, Ian Happ, who's a switch hitter, who will bat from the left-hand side today. Get this, 64 at-bats over the past month, 357 ISO and a weighted on base percentage of 353. So if we're looking from a Chicago end of it, that's probably the best of it there. Jordan Wicks on the mound for the Cubs, not too much intel on him, but some of those right-handed batters like Goldschmidt and Arenado and Wynn. By the way, Mason Wynn, the leadoff batter for the St. Louis Cardinals, a guy to keep an eye on here. He's been scorching hot over the past month. So I do think, let's buck the trend here. Let's go runs even with the wind blowing in at Wrigley. I think they can get 9 or more today.
Okay. I like that, DRS. The Cubs, by the way, have dropped 14 of their last 20 games, now 3 games below 500. The Cardinals just about a month ago were 9 games below 500. They've won 18-10 since May 12th. Now 1 win away if they can pull the slight upset today in Wrigley of getting back to an even 500. California Clash night up by the Bay in San Francisco. The Giants a home favorite against the Angels. What do you like?
Yeah, we got great numbers across the board. It is a true pitcher's ballpark as we understand that. But that 8 is going to be in trouble tonight. Since May the 1st, again, 28 pitchers on the card today. We got a pitcher in Tyler Anderson for the Angels, who is number 28. Spencer Howard for the San Francisco Giants, he's number 26. So 2 bad pitchers, and these lineups really look good going up against them. If we're just taking a look quickly at San Francisco, Ramos, 667 ISO, Chapman, 273, Soler, 217, Estrada, 227, Schmidt, 600, going up against lefties over the past month. Take the over in the game. You won't be disappointed.
Stanley Cup Final talk up next on the early line.
Look at the stats. 5 out of the top 6 televised rated games on the WNBA this year all involve Caitlin Clark. The only one that doesn't was a second half of a doubleheader in which Caitlin Clark played the first game.
Only on SportsGrid.
8 playoff games at home for Boston in Beantown. They are 6-2 straight up.
The wild card, I would say, in this game is not necessarily, well, what are we going to get out of Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, Brown, and certainly Tatum. It is Kristaps Porzingis to me, because we're not getting back a player that's like, hey, rotational guy. Like, remember when Derek Lively went down with an injury? He was playing well, but a young player, like a piece.
The early line. Only on SportsGrid.
Garrett Cole is getting ready to come back too. I guess this. Look, they've played great without him, but you're not going to say to Garrett Cole, "Look, don't come back." I mean, it's a ridiculous conversation to have.
They're not going to take any unnecessary chances. And look, they're at the point where they have a lead. They certainly are going to make the playoffs, I would say, barring some sort of complete collapse. And that's all it takes.
Newswire. Only on SportsGrid.
If you're in the room, what are you doing with the Judge MVP number? Books are now 2-1, standalone favorite. What are you doing with the Judge number?
What do I do with the MVP? I let them bet Judge at what? Even money? Come on in. I mean, you have to acknowledge now that he's the guy.
Game time decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
Game number 4 of the NBA Finals tonight. Will it be done in a Celtics sweep? Can Dallas keep their season afloat? Game number 4 of the Stanley Cup Final tomorrow night in Edmonton. It's the same question. Can the Oilers stave off elimination, or will Florida, with one more victory, win its first ever Stanley Cup in franchise history? To answer those very questions, Anna Dua of the NHL joins us live right here on the early line on this Friday for what might be the final time of this hockey season, Anna. We hope that is not the case.
We'll see. It's not looking too promising right now, so this might be our swan song over here.
Anna, when you were here last week, before this series got started on a Saturday night in Sunrise, you correctly predicted that it might take Edmonton a couple of games to get used to the physicality that Florida plays with. And so far, we have seen that to the tune of 3 consecutive victories for the Panthers. The first 2, a 3-goal margin. Last night, the Panthers were up by 3 before Edmonton did make things interesting in the third and final period, only for the Panthers to prevail once more, 4-3. Has it been that physicality? Is that the main reason that Florida holds a 3-0 series advantage?
It's a little bit of goaltending for sure. There's some physicality aspect there, although Edmonton had a pretty good hits total in that third game, and they looked good. I said it would take them a couple of games to figure it out. I didn't expect it to be till the third period of game 3 when they're down in the series for them to figure it out, which is the first time I saw a flash of this team. But when you're looking at the Oilers, like, the big players haven't shown up yet for Edmonton, and they have to in the series. Like, Connor McDavid's got a couple assists on the board, but, like, you need the Leon Draisaitl's, the Zach Hyman's, all these guys to be scoring goals left, right, and center, especially against a team like Florida that's so strong. It's just tough to watch. I did think it would be a little bit closer than this, I'm not going to lie, but the Panthers have been a dominant team all season long, so I'm not surprised that they're up in the series.
The questions coming into game number 3 weren't really what effort we were going to get at Edmonton, but who was actually going to be on the ice for Florida. Barkov there taking that, shot to the head. Was it a concussion? Was it a jaw injury? He was fine for game number 3, scored a goal and an assist. Also, Reinhard with a goal and assist. And he got some solid goaltending there by Bobrovsky. But the questions continue to come up where you can't just lean on B-level players to win you a Stanley Cup. The top end of the spectrum has to come to play. Is there a reason, Anna, in your eyes, that we take a look at some of these statistics on the better plays for Edmonton? Just underwhelming at this point.
I know after the season's over, we're going to learn about a lot of injuries. There's some players on Edmonton who don't really look like themselves right now, Connor McDavid specifically. So that always plays a factor this late into the year, but you can't blame that. You have to be a team that's equipped and ready to go, and Florida just is. And their depth players have shown up too. It's not just their top guys. Like Evan Rodriguez is having a great series for the Florida Panthers at the moment. So you're seeing how much value this team has up and down the lineup, and that's what I was worried about for Edmonton. Stuart Skinner hasn't been his best. It's just not looked good. Florida was the favorites coming into the series. They are such a strong team. They had such a difficult path to even get to this point and be in the Stanley Cup final. They made it here last year and they lost. It's rare that a team makes like 2 Stanley Cup finals back to back and loses both times. I feel like they have that extra motivation, but my goodness, you wonder what Edmonton's going to have to say after this is all said and done.
In the chase for that first cup in franchise history, Sergei Bobrovsky has been sensational in net for Florida. His second game in only 3 in this cup final, totaling 32 saves. The first was in game 1, a complete clean sheet. Last night, standing tall when they needed him with an Edmonton flurry late in that third period. And now, because of it, Anna, Sergei Bobrovsky minus 420 to win the Conn Smythe Award. If Florida does end up winning the Stanley Cup, as we would expect, is it Bob going home with the Conn Smythe?
I like that look. I do think that if I had to choose right now, it would be Sasha Barkov. He's just been such an impact player for this team in every series. We've seen him come back in game 3, despite some concerns whether he would play or not, and still have a phenomenal performance. He is leading them in points this postseason. So unless like Matthew Tkachuk has a really, really strong end to the finals, we don't even know how many games are left. Sasha Barkov's kind of the player that's sticking out to me right now. Maybe Sam Reinhart if you want to take a flyer. You never know in hockey. That's what's so great about the NHL is I feel like it's pretty easy to guess who the MVP trophy is going to go to in like the NBA or like the NFL, but in the NHL it really truly can go to any guy on that roster. I think Sasha Barkov would be my pick right now.
Bobrovsky with a heavy favorite right now. Now, things could change also, Anna, if we do get an extended series. If it ends on Saturday, that probably means Bob's going to get that and he'll walk away with the Conn Smythe. But if we have extra chances to stack up some of those points, we can see that. So the question is going to be, Florida is a massive favorite, minus 2,100 to win the series. Edmonton at a 10-1 price. And the series spread here for Florida to win minus 1.5 games. Typically, that's around like a plus 100 number. That's a minus 950 now because why? They're up 3-0. The Edmonton Oilers getting a game and a half at a plus 590 price. So just asking the opinion on, obviously, as commentators and on-air hosts, we love more hockey because we're fans of it. The question is, Anna, are we going to get more hockey after Saturday night?
I don't know if we're going to get a reverse sweep, if that's what you're indicating with those numbers right there. It's a tough hill for Edmonton to climb. They did make it competitive towards the end of that game. I know they want to win a game on home ice for their fans in game 4. Like, that arena is rocking and rolling. That city's just so passionate. They have a Canadian team in the Stanley Cup final. Canada hasn't won a Stanley Cup in a long time. So at the very least, I really do hope that they pull one win out in game 4 to give their fans some positive light in this Stanley Cup final. We don't want to see a sweep, but if you ask me overall, the Florida Panthers are just so dominant. Stuart Skinner's always been a concern for Edmonton. It's kind of showing up right now. Their big guys aren't performing. I don't love what I've seen from them. If they had one win so far and it was 2-1, then I would have seen maybe the series going to 6 or 7 if they made the proper adjustments. It's just too late right now. They'd be lucky to get like 5.
Unlike in the NBA, where we have never seen a team overcome an 0-3 series deficit in a best-of-7 postseason set, we have seen it 4 times in Stanley Cup playoff history, including in the Cup final way back in 1942 for Anna Dua's Toronto Maple Leafs, a very long time ago. So, Anna, it is game number 4. Tomorrow night in Edmonton, inside Rogers Place, the Oilers are booked as a very slight home favorite. if Edmonton is going to stave off elimination and force a fifth game back in Sunrise, what needs to change tomorrow night?
They just need to not make mistakes. They need to hunker down and play like the Florida Panthers style of hockey. They need to defend the Panthers well. They need to help out their goaltender here. Like, he's not having a good series. So their defense really has to step up. Their two-way players have to step up because Florida's been the dominant team throughout this entire series and this entire Stanley Cup final. It's just about not making mistakes, playing a clean game, and just getting some of these guys, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, Zach Hyman, Leon Draisaitl, one of these guys to get something going for this team. One win will be a lot for the Edmonton Oilers, and they really have to get one, man. On home ice, their fans deserve one win.
If we put you on the spot, Ann, and you had one player to score a goal on Saturday night, which player would you choose?
I'm going Zach Hyman. Like, it's an easy answer for you right there. He has been phenomenal this postseason. He's been phenomenal during the regular season. If the Edmonton Oilers play the style of hockey that got them to this point, Zach Hyman should be on the score sheet. So let's hope that happens.
Plus 120, Zach Hyman, the shortest price to find the net tomorrow night against Florida and get one past Sergei Bobrovsky. Plus 145 for Connor McDavid. As Anna said earlier in the segment, 3 assists so far in the Stanley Cup final, including 2 last night, and did assist on the only goal for Edmonton in game number 2, but hasn't scored a goal yet in this Cup final. It was supposed to be the Connor McDavid coronation. Can it happen in game number 4 in Edmonton? Anna Dua of the NHL, we appreciate the time as always. Enjoy tomorrow night. Enjoy the game in Edmonton, and maybe we'll talk again next week if this series does extend.
Thank you.
We'll talk about the same kind of idea tonight in Game 4 in Dallas between the Celtics and the Mavericks. Boston, an ever so slight favorite to win Game 4, to sweep the Mavs and win their 8th.
Oh, see you, Ben.
Look at the stats. 5 out of the top 6 televised rated games on the WNBA this year all involve Caitlin Clark. The only one that doesn't was a second half of a doubleheader in which Caitlin Clark played the first game.
Only on SportsGrid.
8 playoff games at home for Boston in Beantown. They are 6-2 straight up.
The wild card, I would say, in this game is not necessarily, well, what are we going to get out of Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, Brown, and certainly Tatum. It is Kristaps Porzingis to me, because we're not getting back a player that's like, hey, rotational guy. Like, remember when Derek Lively went down with the injury? He was playing well, but a young player, like a piece.
The early line. Only on SportsGrid.
Garrett Cole is getting ready to come back too. I guess this. Look, they've played great without him, but you're not going to say to Garrett Cole, "Look, don't come back." I mean, it's a ridiculous conversation to have.
They're not going to take any unnecessary chances. And look, they're at the point where they have a lead. They certainly are going to make the playoffs, I would say, barring some sort of complete collapse. And that's all it takes.
Newswire. Only on SportsGrid.
If you're in the room, what are you doing with the Judge MVP number? Books are now 2-1, standalone favorite. What are you doing with the Judge number?
What do I do with the MVP? I let them bet Judge at what? Even money? Come on in. I mean, you have to acknowledge now that he's the guy.
Game time decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
Game number 4 tonight in Dallas of the 2024 NBA Finals. Is it over tonight? Does the NBA season in 2023-24 come to a close with Boston standing atop the association in championship number 18? That would be a record, the most ever in the history of the NBA. Or can Dallas use its home floor advantage to force a Game 5 and keep this series and its season afloat? That is the discussion. Boston now a very slight favorite. 1 point in the spread, 8 cents of difference, minus 112 on that updated money line on the FanDuel Sportsbook. The over-under stands at 211 and a hook. We're talking about a virtual pick'em. There is not a large edge from the numbers, although Boston will officially be listed as the favorite, at least as of right now. We still have a long while till tip at 8:30 p.m. Eastern time. So I asked this question, Donnie, knowing we're talking about a virtual pick'em, but do you agree with the Celtics being a favorite in Game 4 after the Mavericks were a 3-point favorite in Game 3?
Absolutely. Absolutely, I do, because it's shown up that Kristaps Porzingis or no Porzingis, we're going to be just fine here for the Celtics, and a multitude of guys can step up. And also, baked into that number of Game 3, we all understood the task at hand, but the Dallas Mavericks didn't. You had to win that basketball game if you want to hang around in the series, and they didn't. So a little bit of wind out of their sails. Also, what I'm looking forward to is you love to check in with the FanDuel Sportsbook to see where those bets are going. Hasn't changed all morning. It's roughly 70% of the tickets here coming in on the Boston Celtics, which does include 68% of the money. So the backing is there for Boston. I want to see as we get closer to game time what those feelings are, because we know, yes, the public does bet throughout the day, but on a Friday night NBA Finals game, that money's going to start to flood in once people get off from work and get home. I'm interested to see what that final number would be. I actually would not be surprised if, let's just say, sharp money comes in and pushes the Dallas Mavericks to a slight favorite at -1 before game time, just saying, okay, if we're looking at some of those future lines, Games 3 and Games 4 probably were supposed to be favorites here for the Dallas Mavericks. There weren't any major injuries on the Dallas Mavericks side. It's just that they lost Game 3, so why should we play Game 4? We know we can't come back in the series. That's what I'm keeping my eye on. I want to see what that number does before game time tonight and see if that public can push it around a little bit more.
You would think the odds makers have these things power rated, and they do not often change all that much based on wins and losses in terms of that game-by-game spread. They do get altered by betting and, of course, any injuries. 3-point number in favor of Dallas in game number 3. The Celtics an underdog for just the 4th time all year long. The first time this postseason, they win outright 106-99. Total at 211 and a hook. It is the smallest over-under that we have seen in any of the 4 games so far. Game number 1 had a total at 216 and a half. It stayed under. 215 and a hook. 216 for game 2. 213 and a half for game number 3. All 3 games so far have stayed well under that pregame total. And Donnie, this will be the 13th time this postseason for Dallas that they have played in a game with a total greater than 210. The previous 12, 10 of the 12 have gone under for the Mavericks. How do you equate what you think happens tonight with the total?
Yeah, it seems like, and again, I'm going to stick to that philosophy. And again, we're not really late into the series, but we're technically late into the series because one team has 3 wins already in 3 games. So I'm going to stick true to my format. I don't think we're going to see a wide open wheeling and dealing game between any of the teams, because maybe the Dallas Mavericks come in a little bit loose and what do we have to lose? We're down 3 games. Let's just catch lightning in a bottle early, push the tempo, drop a lot of threes, and see if we maybe can get back into the series enough to force a game number 5. But I don't think the Celtics, Ben, have that mentality. Do you think the Celtics are real loose? Hey, we're up 3-0, but you're on the verge of clinching an NBA championship, which is the goal, which means let's make sure we lock these guys down. Let's take care of the basketball. If it's a 3-on-2 fast break that we don't have the momentum, pull it back out and let's get a better shot, as opposed to maybe in mid-February just trying to ram it to the rim and see what happens at that point here. So for me, I'm going to stick to what I like. And that 211 and a half, I think it stays under the total here. And also, did we point out the fact that, what was it, the Dallas Mavericks haven't reached the 100-point mark just yet? So all of a sudden they're going to score 125 against the Boston Celtics in a closeout game? I don't think so. My lean tonight in this game, that 211 and a half, is towards the under.
89, 98, 99, the 3-point totals and output offensively for Dallas so far in this NBA championship series. They have failed to reach the century mark, and this is an elimination game. Dallas trying to stave off their season coming to a close. It is a potential series clincher, where in the final few moments, if things are tight, that intensity ramps up even more so. If you are Dallas, right, where do you find that silver lining after game number 3? Because we know what needed to course correct following the first 2 games. Kyrie Irving needed to be better. He was. In fact, he was the highest point scorer in game number 3 with 35 points. Despite Luka Doncic fouling out with 4 minutes and 12 seconds remaining in regulation, the Dallas duo outscored the Jays. I guess you're hoping that Luka Doncic plays through regulation and does not foul out. That's the silver lining. That's the wrinkle for the Mavs, because I'm not so sure what they fall back on tonight. So we start with the Mavericks and their points prop, 32.5 for Luka Doncic. Probably would have cleared that had he played the final 4 minutes of regulation on Wednesday. 24.5 for Kyrie Irving, who had not hit 20, had not scored more than 16 in Boston, finishes with 35 in game number 3. How many points combined, once again, Donnie, does the Dallas duo need to get to if the Mavericks are going to win game number 4?
Oh, they better be in the 60s. And I think there's a direct correlation here, because if you pick out one player, right, we saw Kyrie go off and he has the ability to do that. But this team will go as far as Luka Doncic takes him. If his head is in the game, he's not fighting with the referees, not fouling out with about 5 minutes to go, you expect him to shoot 25 plus times in this game, because we know superstars the mentality. If we're going out here, it's not because I shot 13 times and tried to get my other guys involved here. You got to take this game over. So I do think there's a direct correlation between that Luka Doncic number, by the way, now to 32.5 and priced out of -128. So the heavy juice going on that over number. But I agree with that. We're not betting on the Dallas Mavericks B players. We're betting on Luka Doncic. He needs to be in the mid-30s for them to have a chance to win this game.
Kyrie made 4 threes in game 3. His 3-point prop, 2.5. Luka only made 1. For the first time this series, not getting 4. 3.5 the number. More prop combos next.
Look at the stats. 5 out of the top 6 televised rated games on the WNBA this year all involve Caitlin Clark. The only one that doesn't was a second half of a doubleheader in which Caitlin Clark played the first game.
Only on SportsGrid.
8 playoff games at home for Boston in Beantown. They are 6-2 straight up.
The wild card, I would say, in this game is not necessarily, well, what are we going to get out of Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, Brown, and certainly Tatum. It is Kristaps Porzingis to me, because we're not getting back a player that's like, hey, rotational guy. Like, remember when Derek Lively went down with an injury? He was playing well, but a young player, like a piece.
The early line. Only on SportsGrid.
Garrett Cole is getting ready to come back too. I guess this. Look, they've played great without him, but you're not going to say to Garrett Cole, "Look, don't come back." I mean, it's a ridiculous conversation to have.
They're not going to take any unnecessary chances. And look, they're at the point where they have a lead. They certainly are going to make the playoffs, I would say, barring some sort of complete collapse. And that's all it takes.
Newswire. Only on SportsGrid.
If you're in the room, what are you doing with the Judge MVP number? Books are now 2-1, standalone favorite. What are you doing with the Judge number?
What do I do with the MVP? I let them bet Judge at what? Even money? Come on in. I mean, you have to acknowledge now that he's the guy.
Game time decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
So I do want to make this point, finally, on Luka Doncic's prop for tonight. 32.5 is the points prop. You would think he has to get close to that, probably go over if Dallas is going to win its first game of the NBA Finals in game number 4, trying to stave off elimination. But in the first 2 games, Donnie, he made at least 4 threes. In fact, made 4 in both of those 2 games. And his 3 points prop was 3.5, heavily juiced to the over. He only made 1 triple in game number 3 and, of course, exited the game early after fouling out with more than 4 minutes remaining in regulation. The 3-point prop now for Luka, 3.5, the over at just minus 128. I do believe you are getting some value there. Now we go to the other side of this matchup, the Boston Celtics and their duo, Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. If this series is decided tonight, the most important conversation is who wins the individual award, the NBA Finals MVP. Brown right now, minus 340 to win the hardware. Jason Tatum at plus 270. And yet Tatum, with a 27.5 point prop, has a higher number than that of Jaylen Brown at 24.5.
It is going to be fun to watch it play, and I'm sticking to my guns at this point here. I do think it's going to be Jason Tatum who has a big night tonight. And also, if he doesn't, it won't be for lack of trying. He's going to shoot 20-plus times easily. I look from the shoot right around 25 times tonight. So we'll get some of these best bets out of the way, and it will be some Boston Celtics-centric type wagers here that I'm waiting on here. Tatum, big night tonight.
Again, we're not sure the next time that we speak to you if a 5th game of the 2024 NBA Finals to preview, probably just a recap of how everything played out in game number 4. We could be looking at a historic postseason run for the Boston Celtics, 80-20 in their 100 games this year, with a victory to close out the season in series tonight against Dallas, 16-2 throughout this playoff run. If they win tonight in the Lone Star State, that would be the 5th best mark in the history of the association. And it would end with championship banner number 18 being hung in Boston, the most ever in NBA playoff history. It does bear repeating, minus 8,000 for the Celtics as the very heavy series outright favorites. This is the 157th time in NBA playoff history a best-of-7 series has seen a team jump out to a 3-0 series advantage, including both of the conference finals that we have seen throughout this postseason. In the previous 156 times, the team that was up 3-0 has won all 156 sets, and only 12 times have we seen a team even win 2 straight games to force a Game 6, just 4 times to force a Game 7. So, knowing all of that, ahead of Game 4 tonight in a huge weekend on the diamond around Major League Baseball and in downtown Omaha for the Men's College World Series. Before we say farewell and goodbye, it is time for a best bet. It's time for Bye Bye Bye. Donnie right side, what is the best bet on this Friday?
Yeah, we're going to go with the best bet on a Friday night here with the Boston Celtics. I'm going to lay the -1. They will wrap up the NBA Finals tonight and become the 18th champion for the Boston Celtics. But you want some bonus action too? How about Jason Tatum? 30-plus points at a +140, which correlates right into a +270. MVP for the Finals for Jason Tatum. So some bonus action to go along with the best bet, Boston Celtics.
Love that plus money sprinkle. My best bet in game number 4 is Derek Lively for the Dallas Mavericks, the rookie reserve who comes off the bench but has made a huge impact throughout this postseason run for the Mavs. And in the absence of Kristaps Porzingis in game 3, 11 points, 13 rebounds for Lively. His rebound prop, 8.5. The over some plus money. His points prop, also 8.5. I like either one. I lean rebounds first, over 8.5 at a +106 price. And who would I be? Who would I be, Donnie right side, if I did not end this week on the opening day of the Men's College World Series in Omaha in 2024 with a bet on the College Diamond? It's the first game of 2 today in Omaha, UNC and Virginia. The Tar Heels a favorite. The total is 12.5. It's a bigger ballpark in the Big O, under 12.5 between the Heels and the Cavaliers. How do you like it?
I do like it. And by the way, Ben and I do agree. The World Series, the College World Series, would be much better if it wasn't played in Omaha. So we'll leave you at that on a Father's Day weekend. How about that? We agree. We agree and don't disagree.
Never. Always keep it in Omaha. Always have fun. The Rocco's Jello Shot Challenge
Where is Omaha?
Already underway. Great bars everywhere. Somewhere in the middle of America. Have a great weekend. We'll talk to you Monday, 8 a.m. Eastern.